The grandmother, in the guise of a monster, was approaching the girl. Hi friends, today I'm going to tell you a horror story. That happened to a brother and sister and their grandparents. Meryl and Ron were playing in the yard at their house. Their mom, Laura, was working in her room. Suddenly the phone rang. Laura answered it and it was her boss. He said Laura had to go on a business trip for a week. She was very upset. She didn't know who to leave her children with. Laura called her mom. They didn't talk for a long time, but she answered. Meryl and Ron's grandparents agreed to take them in. Darlings, I have to go away for a while, Laura said. Mom, what about us? The children asked at the same time. You will stay with my parents, replied Mom. The children were excited to finally meet their grandparents. In the morning, Laura drove them to the house. Be polite, they are very old, Laura warned. Okay, Mommy, replied the children. Moments later, Laura was on her way to the airport. Laura and Ron were approached by a grandmother named Peggy. In the back, they were greeted by Grandpa Sam. Hello, darlings! You're going to love it here, said the old lady, smiling. We are very happy to see you, continued the old man. The grandparents gave the children toys, and they played with them all evening. At night, Ron had a strange dream. Grandma and Grandpa were standing next to a crying Meryl, and they were laughing loudly. He woke up out of fear and decided to drink some water. Ron went down to the first floor. He met his grandfather and froze at what he saw. Sam was sitting there looking into the TV that was turned off. Grandpa, are you asleep? Ron asked. Grandpa didn't answer and continued to sit still. Ron thought Grandpa had fallen asleep with his eyes open. The boy decided to go back to his room. He couldn't sleep for a long time. In the morning, Ron told his sister, but she just laughed. You're a coward, Ron, said the girl. All day long, Meryl and Peggy had been making pie. Ron was kicking a ball all by himself. Suddenly, Sam came up to him. Have you seen what kind of pie our girls are making? Grandpa asked. Yeah, Grandma and Meryl are good, replied Ron. It's probably as good as the worms, continued Sam. The boy could barely contain his fear, but that's when Grandpa laughed. You don't seem to get the joke, said Grandpa. Together they played soccer some more. Meryl called Ron and Grandpa over to eat pie. By the way, if you hear strange noises at night, don't be scared. We have mice in the house, Grandma warned. At night, the brother and sister couldn't sleep. Suddenly, strange sounds appeared. They decided to check and chase the mouse away. They saw Grandma and Grandpa wearing strange clothes. They left the house and headed towards the forest. In the morning, the kids asked where they went, but Peggy and Sam said they were just imagining things. Grandma and Grandpa sat down to watch TV. Ron and Meryl decided to take a walk in the woods to make sure everything was okay. They took a long walk and found a shovel and an axe. Maybe they didn't bring that here, the girl asked. There aren't any more houses around here, replied Ron. Together they walked back home. Where have you been so long? Sam and Peggy asked. Ron was very scared and couldn't say anything. We just took a long walk, and now we want to sleep, Meryl replied. Okay, good night, darlings, Peggy said. Sam also waved and said good night. All night long, they couldn't sleep again. Suddenly, the strange sounds happened again. Ron and Meryl were very scared because it was very loud, but they dared to open the door a little to peek out. In the hallway was Grandma. She was jumping and running around like she was 10 years old. Her eyes were as white as her nightie and her skin had changed color. The brother and sister locked the door and didn't come out until morning. In the morning, Sam called the kids in to eat. He had a huge axe in his hands. I'm going to cut up some fruit. Will you have some? Grandpa asked. No thanks, we don't want any, the children replied at the same time. Ron and Meryl decided not to have breakfast and went outside. They noticed Grandpa and Grandma coming out of the house. They were watching their grandchildren intently with frightening smiles. Meryl decided to call her Mom. The girl was terrified to tell her about Peggy and Sam, then turned on the video camera and showed Laura the grandparents. Laura looked at them and was speechless. These are not your grandparents. Who are they? The battery on her phone was dead. Kids, let's go inside to eat, yelled Sam and Peggy. Ron and Meryl decided to obey them. "Who called you sweethearts?" Grandma asked. "It was Mommy," said Ron. "We said it was okay and said goodbye," continued Meryl. The kids retired to their room and sat there until nightfall. They decided not to go to bed and ran away. Ron and Meryl left the house. Sister and brother went into the woods. They searched for a long time for a way out. But after a few minutes, Ron and Meryl got lost. But suddenly they heard voices. It was Sam and Peggy. The brother and sister tried to hide, but they couldn't. Grandma and Grandpa appeared in front of Ron and Meryl. They didn't look like they usually do. They had white eyes and a very strange smile. Grandma and Grandpa were lost. Brother and sister said at the same time. Peggy and Sam didn't say anything back. They started to approach their fake grandchildren. Meryl and Ron screamed. But after a moment, the screams subsided. In the morning, Laura flew into town. She called Ron and Meryl many times, but they didn't answer. Laura arrived at her parents' house. She went all over the house, but there was no one there. Laura decided to call the police. A couple hours later, the house was searched by professionals. They found an axe and Ron and Meryl's things. Laura's real parents and her children were missing. The police searched the woods all night. There they found some more of Ron and Meryl's things. Laura went back to her parents' house. She lived there for a few days. In the morning, she heard strange noises near the front door. It was Sam and Peggy. Laura saw them and hid. "They won't be able to find them, will they?" Peggy asked. "I hid them safely," answered Sam. They took their things and left. Laura called the police again. An hour later, the police arrived. Laura told them everything that had happened in the house. The police went after Sam and Peggy. The kidnappers went deep into the woods. After a few more steps, a tent appeared from behind the trees. Meryl and Ron came out of it. "Let us go. We won't say anything to anyone," said the brother and sister. "We need you. We can't let you go," replied Sam. "You are extraordinary children, and we'll need you for the ritual," Peggy continued. "Once upon a time, your real grandparents had magic, but it fades with age. We want to take your powers while you still have them," said Sam and Peggy. Ron tried to run away, but suddenly he took off. "As you can see, we've already taken some of your powers," Sam said, with a laugh. The police came running out of the bushes. "You're under arrest," said one of them. Sam and Peggy laughed out loud. "You'll never be able to stop us," Peggy replied. The fake grandparents started to approach Laura and the policeman. They froze with fear. Suddenly, the children felt anger and a strange power within them. The brother and sister made Sam and Peggy disappear into thin air with their thoughts. After that, they lost consciousness. In the morning, they woke up in their house. Everything's gonna be all right now. But the real grandparents never came back.